Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. This time, we're diving headfirst into the world of local government. We're talking Bainbridge Island City Council meetings.
The fascinating, sometimes unpredictable world where those everyday decisions that shape our community get made.
We waded through 3 May 2024 meetings. Minutes, folks. Minutes, so you don't have to.
We're talking about the nitty-gritty details, the debates, the decisions,
And believe me, there were some real gems in there.
a proposed crematorium, heated debates about art installations, even a deep dive into the city's budget.
Who knew spreadsheets could be so riveting, right?
Well, maybe not riveting, but they do reveal a lot about a city's priorities.
Okay, so let's start with something a little less, shall we say, dry. This crematorium proposal really got people fired up. The May 28th public hearing packed house.
It's interesting how this local issue taps into these larger national conversations about, well, death and dying.
Right, we're seeing a real shift towards cremation, people thinking about environmental impact, even in their final arrangements.
Exactly. And speaking of things that can be surprisingly complex, let's talk about public art. Bainbridge Island has this program called Something New.
Something new, tell me more.
So imagine strolling through the park and you stumble upon this incredible sculpture. Or you turn a corner and there's a vibrant mural brightening up an otherwise ordinary wall.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but how do they choose what goes where? Is it just a matter of personal taste?
Oh, not at all. The selection process is this fascinating mix of artistic vision and, well, bureaucracy. We'll get into the details in a bit, but it's more involved than you might think.
Sounds like there's a story there. But first, we can't forget about the less glamorous but oh so important city budget.
Ah, yes, the budget, always a hot topic. We'll break down where those tax dollars are going and what it says about the city's priorities. One item that caught my eye was funding for a critical fish passage project.
Okay, so for those of us who didn't ace marine biology, what's the significance of a fish passage?
Essentially, these passages help salmon migrate upstream to spawn. Crucial for maintaining healthy fish populations, which impacts the entire ecosystem. The council dedicating funds to this speaks volumes about their commitment to environmental sustainability.
Okay, let's get back to this crematorium debate. You mentioned a packed house at that May 28th meeting. What were the main arguments on each side?
Well, you had some residents like Michael Bonoff and Sue Wilmot. They lived pretty close to the proposed site.
Makes sense.
And they were worried about the environmental impact, especially air quality. They weren't totally sold on the environmental studies presented.
Understandable. Those are valid concerns. What about the folks in favor?
Right, so Tim Dinan and Allison Hahn, they own Cook Funeral Home and Hillcrest Cemetery.
Okay.
They argued that a local crematorium is, well, it's a necessary service for the community.
I see.
They emphasized the rising popularity of cremation, which we talked about. It's a national trend, right?
Right.
Offering more choice and convenience for families.
So it sounds like there are some real logistical and even ethical considerations there.
Oh, absolutely. And to make things even more complicated, you had Jeff Wallace from the Kitsap Medical Examiner's Office. He argued that cremation can be the more environmentally sound option compared to traditional burial, citing concerns about embalming fluids, land use, that kind of thing.
Interesting. So a different take on the whole environmental aspect.
Exactly. And then Ron Peltier, a resident, he pushed back a bit on the environmental benefits, expressed concern about potential air pollution from crematoriums, but he also advocated for a broader conversation about end-of-life choices. Not just cremation versus burial, but kind of a more holistic approach to death care.
Wow. Sounds like this debate really brought up some big questions about how we as a society deal with death and memorialization.
Exactly. It's these larger societal shifts playing out in these local government discussions. Fascinating, isn't it?
Definitely. Speaking of things that can get people talking, let's get back to this art program. Something new. I'm still curious. Walk me through how it works.
Okay, so picture this. You're walking through the park, and boom, you stumble across this captivating sculpture, right?
Yeah.
Or you turn a corner, and there's this vibrant mural just brightening up the everyday. That's something new in action. Each year, the city, working with the Public Art Committee, they carefully select these art installations, put them up in public spaces all across Bainbridge Island.
Okay. Sounds pretty cool, but how do they decide which pieces to feature? Like, what are the criteria?
It's not just about what looks nice, I can tell you that.
I bet as much.
It's this whole process. The Public Art Committee, they review submissions from artists. They look at artistic merit, sure, but also site suitability, how well the piece fits with, and this is interesting, community standards.
Community standards, huh? Sounds a little subjective.
Exactly. And this is where things get interesting. Public art, it's meant to provoke, to spark conversation, even debate, right?
So it's not always about everyone agreeing on if it's pretty or not.
Right. It's about how it makes you feel, what it makes you think about. Think about some of the most iconic public art out there. Often spark controversy, challenge the norms.
I'm starting to see how this could lead to some lively city council discussions. So once the committee has their recommendations, what happens?
City Council time. They have the final say. In the May 14th meeting, they reviewed the committee's recommendations, voted to approve the proposed art for this year.
Okay, so did they use a random name generator for any of this?
Not this time. But we did find another interesting tidbit in the minutes. Remember that video we talked about? Won a national award?
Oh, right, the award. That's a pretty big deal. What was it for exactly?
Yeah. So it was a video produced by the city, took first place at the National Association of Government Communicators Conference.
Wow, congrats to the city.
Yeah.
See, it's not all subcommittees and budget hearings.
Exactly. Although, speaking of, we did notice a theme in these minutes, a real emphasis on getting younger generations involved.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, Councilmember Matthews, they're pushing for adding a youth member to different commissions, committees, that sort of thing.
Interesting. Did they say why that's so important?
They said it's about making sure young people have a voice, shaping their community.
Makes sense.
Not just for now, but building that next generation of engaged citizens, leaders even.
Right, because they're the ones who'll be living with the decisions being made today. Maybe they'll be the ones pushing for even bolder art installations down the line. Speaking of shaking things up, did you see how they ended up filling that vacancy on the Winslow Way Affordable Housing Project Developer Selection Committee?
Oh, tell me they used the random name generator again?
Not quite, but close.
Yep.
So get this. 3 council members all want the position.
Oh.
They did what any reasonable group would do. They drew names out of a hat.
No way. That's amazing.
Right, only in local government. But, hey, it's a good reminder that it's not always serious business.
Some days you gotta have a little fun.
So we covered a lot of ground here, some pretty intense debates, art appreciation, the ins and outs of the city budget, and of course, a little bit of random selection drama for good measure.
Yeah.
What does it all say about Bainbridge Island?
Well, I think it shows how much local governments really deal with on a daily basis.
Right, it's not just one big thing, it's a million little things that all add up.
And these minutes, they're like a window into that world, where debates about crematoriums are just as important as, say, budget allocations or infrastructure projects.
And let's be real, those decisions, big and small, they impact people's lives every day.
Absolutely. And maybe even more importantly, it shows a community that's really plugged in. Residents speaking their minds at public hearings, committee members, really digging into these topics.
Let's mean in the word.
And council members, they're grappling with tough decisions, the kind that affect the whole island.
It's a good reminder that local government, it's more than just meetings and paperwork. It's about people coming together to shape their community. And as we've seen, it can be a lot more interesting and surprising than we think.
Absolutely.
So to everyone listening, congrats. You're basically Bainbridge Island City Council insiders now.
And if we've piqued your interest, check out the full meeting minutes on the city website. You might be surprised by what you find.
Until next time, stay curious, everyone.